Hey there, my dear friends. This video contains some serious topics, and so I hope that you can put that into consideration when selecting whether or not to watch this video. Though, if productivity or doing things when you have depression is an issue, I would strongly recommend for you to sit down and give this video a watch. The premise of this video is very simple, though it took a lot of experience to accomplish. Today, I will tell you how I personally remain productive while having chronic major depression and anxiety issues. The forefront question surrounding depression and depression treatment is one which is paradoxical in nature. How do you make yourself do things when you don't want to? Well, you don't. Or rather, you can't. And if you find a way to do that, it is likely that it is not by your own force, but by an outside force, and you're likely to be miserable, or even more miserable than you were before. So what do you do? When talking about productivity and efficiency, you get a lot of gurus, we can say, that talk about discipline. You get the famous people like Jocko Willink, who say that no matter how you feel, you go and do it. And that's the difference between motivation and discipline. To a unaffected mind, that discipline is great, and people with mental health issues also need that discipline to a degree. But you can't rely on that as a long-term motivator for your actions in life. In the end, you do actually have to want to attain a goal or to do a thing. Jocko Willink wakes up at 4:30 a.m. to get stuck into his day to do an early morning workout. And the idea of discipline definitely applies here, as no one in their right mind, or likely in any mind, will wake up at 4:30 a.m. and feel like getting out of bed to work out. So that's a time when discipline makes sense. But it wouldn't make sense if Jocko Willink didn't care about his success at all, didn't care about his health, or didn't care about his image, or any of the long-term motivators which inspire him to apply that rather short-term discipline of every morning getting out of bed. Do you see the distinction that I am making? You do, before being able to apply discipline and get yourself out of a rut, have to want to get out of that very rut. If you genuinely don't care about improving, you can force yourself to improve for a little while. But the discipline won't stay. You can force yourself to get up early in the morning to work out. But how many times will you do it if you genuinely don't care about your health or your strength or any of the reasons for working out? So this is the paradox and it's hard, and it hurts, because people say, just get out of bed, or just do a workout, just spend time with friends so that you can be happy. Well, a bit of a newsflash. What if you don't care? What if you don't care to improve because you feel that it doesn't matter? That's the conundrum. So this advice about pushing through, moving forward, of course, it does help a bit. You do need discipline to get out of a rut, probably more than ever. But you need more than discipline. You need to want to improve. Well, that is the topic of this video. How do you make yourself want to do something when you are lacking in want? And I hope by the end of this video, some traditional cognitive behavioral therapy practices will make sense to you now, and you might understand why modern psychology works in the way that it does, and that it's proven to be effective. And you'll see that the hypothesis under which we utilize cognitive behavioral therapeutic techniques actually does make sense for the sickness of depression. To be able to work with something, you of course need to know what it is. So what is want? Well, want is something that you don't necessarily have to apply motivation or discipline to do. At least the idea behind it doesn't require those two variables to as much of an extent as if you did not apply want. Want is an internal emotional compulsion to go and do something based on an associated variable of its components. So what does that mean? Well, there are two reasons you might want to do something. There is fear or desire. You may want to do something because you get internal enjoyment out of it, or there is something associated with it that you gain when you complete this activity. Though I would like to remind you that most of the time things which are intrinsically motivating, meaning that you like doing it for itself, are more powerful motivators. Well, what's another reason? Well, I talked about desire. Fear is a very powerful motivator, and it can really motivate us to do things that we don't want to do. What do I mean by that? Well, fear would be the negative consequences of not doing that action. Take, for example, the classic homework done the night before. You were set the homework 2 weeks in advance, but you did not want to do it for itself. Doing homework is not really fun, and completing the homework does not give you a great reward, but just the completion of itself. So, of course, you don't do it initially. You're not rushing to do it because you don't necessarily want to. But at the same time, you don't want to not do it. So you wait until the fear increases. For some people it might be a week. For some people it might be a day. Or for some people it might be the class before. Whatever level of fear is tangible enough to motivate you to fulfill your requirements. At some point the balance will tip, and the fear of the repercussions of not doing your homework will overbalance your lack of want to do the activity, and will therefore make you want to do it within a certain period of time. So, therefore, these two variables are both powerful motivators which go into wanting to be productive, to do something. There are a lot of other factors which go into behavior and motivation, but I feel that these are two which are adequate to talk about within the time constraints of our video. So, to want to do something, you apply these two variables and manipulate them to a point to which increases your want to do a thing. The two ways, of course, that you can manipulate are by manipulation of the thing itself, or manipulation of your view of the thing. The second is slightly more complicated, but the best outcomes come when you manipulate both variables. For example, if you do not have the ability to make an activity more enjoyable within itself, you might choose to develop a passion for one of the topics within the activity and internally reframe it to be more interesting in your mind. But let's go through and do a traditional cognitive behavioral therapy sheet activity. This ends the semi-scripted bit of the video, and the rest of the video I will be, off the top of my mind, taking you through the list building activity. So, if you can, I would like to invite you to get a piece of paper and a pen, pencil, marker, texter, or anything that you can utilize. For this, you will have 3 columns, which will be utilized per activity you wish to want to do more. You will have good, bad, and fear. In the good, I would urge you to write what are the things which you enjoy about the activity that motivate you to do it. Is the activity intrinsically fun? I'll give you examples for me. When I do a role-play video, I find it fun to be able to joke and be silly with the camera. I think videos go the fastest for production in my role plays because I'm having the most fun and the time slips by. So, what are the things that you get from the activity that are good, and what are the things that intrinsically motivate you? Then, the middle, the bad. What are the things that you don't like doing involved in this activity? What facets about it do you not enjoy? For me, roleplay videos are the hardest for me to produce because they require you to be funny or to be entertaining. And so, writing up a script, sitting down, looking at a blank piece of paper or screen and coming up with something funny is difficult. And then, fear. I have personally said that I will commit to doing 2 videos per week that are role plays. And I've told other people, and so I fear not doing it because of the lack of respect that I would receive if I did not fulfill my duties, and possibly the lack of engagement or interaction with my audience that I would receive if I did not do a more stimulating video every week like a role play. That's the fear. The fear and the good are motivators, and the middle works the opposite way around. Now, how do you influence these variables? Well, let's go to good. How can you increase the variables that you've already put there, or add new ones? So, for example, I enjoy filming the roleplay videos, and I notice that the time goes by quick. And so I'm very motivated and I want to do it because I have some intrinsic motivation of hanging out with my audience with the camera and being stupid. So how do I increase this? Well, recently, you may have noticed, I make the premise of the roleplay more outlandish and strange to create a sense of novelty for me, so that I can remain creative and the time can fly by even faster as I can work off of more humorous premises. Then, onto the bad column. How can I mitigate or get rid of the variables which make me not want to do something? Well, I feel a bit of force when I have to create a roleplay video. And a lot of that force is involved with the start of the creation. The part when I have to sit down and look at an empty sheet and know that it needs to be full of interesting and exciting details. Well, the way I combat this is by making that easier and less boring and less intimidating. Instead of forcing myself to sit down and look at nothing, which is part of the fear, I keep a notebook with me. And whenever I'm watching content, consuming something, or walking around and I have an idea for a funny video, I write it down. I write it down. I write it down. And so there is never a time where I'm greeted solely by a blank sheet, because I always have an idea. And then I go on to do a skeleton. It would be much too daunting to just start writing the script and expect to know where it leads and finishes and the point of the video. But it's much easier to create 3 or 4 point ideas, which are things that I find funny, related to the given topic. And then, under each one, I can visit them and highlight and identify what I think makes it funny, and then slowly expand. This removes a lot of the negative variables around the bad part of making a roleplay. And finally, the fear. This is the more controversial but also very powerful method for making yourself want to do something. You don't decrease the fear, of course. You know that you increase the fear of not doing it. You do this by writing down negatives about what might happen if you don't do the activity. And then you write down one more thing and one more negative thing until you have a long list of negative things which might happen if you neglect to do your responsibilities. For me, it might be I don't produce my roleplay videos, my engagement goes down, I start to lose my audience, the work that I've consistently done gets undermined, the audience loses respect, I lose my audience, and then eventually I stop producing videos because no one is watching or engaging. And that is the fear motivator for doing the video. So that's how you make yourself want to do something. You get the good, the bad, and the fear, and you use each of these variables. And eventually, after doing a lot of different things that you want to do, your mood starts to increase. And this is the premise of modern depression treatment. You use cognitive behavioral therapy to influence ideas behind motivation, to go and do things which you know are good, which you start to enjoy doing, and then your mood starts to lift over a long time. And that's both how you make yourself want to do something and how you treat depression. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.